Unaware he was being filmed, the priest opened the church at night, and what he did left the community divided between right and wrong. Sunday morning in Greenfield started with an unrest that no one could have predicted. The usual silence that preceded the Sunday Mass at St. Peter's Church was interrupted by a fervent murmur spreading among the faithful. The revelation of the video showing Father Daniel Harris welcoming a group of refugees had hit the small town like a lightning bolt. The footage was broadcast on local television and quickly went viral on social media, leaving the community in a state of shock and confusion. That day, the church was packed. Parishioners who usually skipped Sunday Mass attended, eager to see how the priest would address the controversy. At the church entrance, small groups formed, whispering and debating heatedly. Some faces expressed admiration and support, while others showed clear disapproval and anger. Inside the temple, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Father Daniel climbed the pulpit, aware of the fixed gazes and expectations weighing on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to calm the spirits. "My brothers and sisters," began Father Daniel, his voice echoing through the sacred space. "Today, more than ever, we need to remember Christ's teachings on love and compassion." A voice interrupted from the middle of the congregation. "But Father, what about the laws? You defied our country's laws." It was Mr. Thompson, one of the church's oldest and most conservative members. Father Daniel remained calm. "I understand your concerns, Mr. Thompson. I am not here to encourage civil disobedience, but to remind us that sometimes human laws can conflict with the divine laws of love and mercy." A young woman, Maria, who was at the back of the church, stood up in defense of the priest. "He did what any Christian should do. He helped people in need. How can we criticize him for that?" The debate intensified. Murmurs turned into open discussions. Father Daniel watched the growing division, feeling the pain of seeing his congregation so fragmented. "Please, everyone," he implored, raising his hands in a gesture of appeasement. "Let us remember that we are here to worship God and seek His guidance. Let's listen to each other with respect and try to understand different perspectives." Father Daniel's sermon that day was an appeal for unity and understanding. He spoke about the parable of the Good Samaritan, emphasizing that true faith manifests through acts of kindness and compassion. However, he also acknowledged the complexity of the situation and asked for patience as the community navigated these difficult times. After the Mass, the division was palpable. Groups formed outside the church, continuing the discussion started inside. Some praised Father Daniel, calling him a hero for his courage in helping the refugees. Others, however, couldn't forgive him for, in their view, disrespecting the laws and putting the community at risk. That night, the parish house was lit, and Father Daniel was in his office, reflecting on the day's events. He knew the coming weeks would be decisive for his position in the community and the future of St. Peter's Church. In a moment of introspection, he wrote in his diary, "Today, I saw the face of our community changed. The video revealed more than my actions. It exposed the deep divisions that exist among us. I pray that we can find a path to reconciliation and that Christ's love guides each of our steps." The revelation of the video was just the beginning of a series of events that would transform Greenfield forever, forcing its inhabitants to confront their deepest beliefs and reevaluate the true meaning of compassion and humanity. The revelation of the video showing Father Daniel welcoming refugees quickly turned St. Peter's Church in Greenfield into a scene of intense conflict. The congregation, once united by faith and community, now found itself divided into two opposing factions, each fervently defending its beliefs about the morality and legality of the priest's actions. On one side were Father Daniel's supporters, who saw his actions as a genuine expression of Christian principles of helping others. Jesus taught us to love and welcome those in need, argued Clara Martins, a longtime devotee of the church. Father Daniel did exactly that. How can we condemn him for following Christ's teachings? On the other side were those who felt betrayed, believing that the priest had violated the law and the community's trust. "This isn't about charity. It's about legality," retorted George Peterson, a local businessman. "We have laws to follow, and Father Daniel disrespected them. He put our community at risk." During Masses, the tension was palpable. Heated discussions often interrupted Father Daniel's sermons, turning the sacred space of the church into a verbal battleground. In one of these occasions, Marta Silva, a fervent supporter of the priest, stood up during the homily to confront the opponents. "You talk about laws, but what about God's law? Isn't that the most important? How can you turn a blind eye to human suffering?" Immediately, Robert Edwards, one of the most vehement critics, retorted, "What about the safety of our families? What if one of those refugees is a criminal? The priest didn't think about the consequences of his actions." These verbal confrontations quickly evolved into occasional fights, requiring the intervention of other congregation members to restore order. The situation reached a critical point when a group of opponents threatened to boycott the church, declaring they wouldn't return until Father Daniel was removed from his position. "We can't go on like this," lamented Maria Delgado, one of the oldest parishioners, during a community meeting. "We are destroying our own community because of this division. We need to find a way to resolve this." The answer, however, wasn't simple. Each faction was firmly rooted in its beliefs, and reconciliation seemed a distant goal. To many, Father Daniel had become a symbol of both heroism and betrayal, depending on each individual's perspective. In an attempt to calm the spirits, Father Daniel organized a series of community meetings to promote dialogue and understanding. "We need to listen to each other," he appealed during one of these meetings. "I understand that many of you are worried and feel betrayed, but I ask that you consider the humanity of the people we welcomed. They are no different from us." Despite his efforts, tensions continued to escalate. The discussions, initially civilized, often degenerated into accusations and insults. "You're putting all of us in danger," accused Susan Wright, a mother concerned about her children. "How can you justify this?" "I justify it with love and compassion," responded the priest, trying to stay calm. "These people fled horrible situations. They need our help." The division in the congregation not only affected the peace inside the church, but also reverberated throughout the town of Greenfield. Friends and families found themselves on opposite sides of the debate, and the community, once united, was on the brink of a permanent rupture. The question now was whether faith and reason could prevail over fear and distrust, and whether St. Peter's Church could find its way back to unity and reconciliation. John Smith had always been a man of principles. As an immigration officer in Greenfield, he performed his duties with firmness and integrity. However, the revelation of the video showing Father Daniel Harris welcoming refugees deeply shook his convictions. John found himself at a moral and professional crossroads that affected not only his career, but also his family life. Arriving home that evening, John found his wife, Mary, and their children, Emma and Lucas, gathered in the living room. The video was playing on the television, and the expressions on their faces were of pure admiration for Father Daniel. "Did you see this, John?" asked Mary, with a look of compassion and pride. "Father Daniel risked everything to help these people." John sighed deeply. "Yes, I saw it. But what he did was illegal. He defied immigration laws." "But what about morality, John?" Mary retorted with a serious expression. "And compassion. Aren't these the values we always taught our children?" Lucas, the eldest son, approached. "Dad, Father Daniel always taught us to help those in need. He doesn't deserve to be punished for that." Emma, the youngest, added, "He's a hero, Dad. He saved those people." John felt a tightness in his chest. His children's admiration for Father Daniel was undeniable, and he couldn't deny the positive impact the priest had had on their lives. However, he was torn between his professional duty and his personal loyalty. The next day, upon arriving at work, John was immediately summoned to a meeting with his superiors. The head of the department, Mr. Thompson, didn't waste time getting straight to the point. "John, we need you to take a firm stance on this incident with Father Daniel," said Thompson with a severe expression. "The law was violated, and this cannot go unpunished." John swallowed hard. "I understand, sir, but Father Daniel acted out of compassion and humanity. He followed Christian principles of helping others." Thompson frowned. "That may be true, but our job is to enforce the law, and he broke that law. We expect you to take the necessary measures." The pressure on John increased each day. At home, Mary and the children continued to fervently defend Father Daniel. At work, his colleagues and superiors expected him to act against the priest. The tension culminated in a particularly difficult night when John and Mary had a heated argument. "I can't just ignore my responsibilities, Mary," John exclaimed, his voice full of frustration. "But what about your values, John, and the person you are?" Mary responded with tears in her eyes. "You've always been a fair and compassionate man. You can't let bureaucracy destroy that." John remained silent for a moment, reflecting on his wife's words. He knew Mary was right. He had always valued justice and compassion, and now he was being challenged to live out these values in a way he never imagined. Finally, John made a decision. The next morning, he called a meeting with Thompson and the other superiors. "Gentlemen," began John with a firm and determined voice, "after much reflection, I have decided that I cannot, in good conscience, take punitive measures against Father Daniel. He acted according to the principles of humanity and compassion, and I believe these values should be respected." Thompson looked at John with a mixture of surprise and disapproval. "Are you aware of the consequences of this decision, John?" "Yes, I am," John replied with conviction, "and I'm prepared to face them." Leaving the meeting, John felt a sense of relief and clarity. He knew his decision could have serious repercussions, but he also knew he had done what was right. At home, Mary and the children welcomed him with hugs and words of support, and John felt that, despite the difficulties, he was on the right path. John's decision not only reaffirmed his own values but also influenced other community members to reconsider their positions. John's struggle between duty and morality became a symbol of the complexity of the situation in Greenfield, and his courage inspired others to seek compassion and justice above blind conformity to rules. The refugees welcomed by Father Daniel brought with them stories of pain and hope, which began to intertwine with the lives of Greenfield's residents. Among them was Amina, a young girl who had lost her parents during the dangerous journey in search of a safe place. Lost and scared, Amina found unexpected comfort in a friendship with Emily, a local teenager who had shown solidarity with the refugees from the start. Emily, known in town for her generous heart, immediately volunteered to help upon hearing about the refugees' arrival. She met Amina, a girl with a sad look but an undeniable inner strength. From their first encounter, the two established a deep connection based on empathy and understanding. "Hi, my name is Emily. Can I help you with anything?" Emily said, offering a welcoming smile. Amina, still shy and distrustful, responded in hesitant English, "I am Amina. Thank you. I just miss my parents." From that moment, Emily did everything she could to make Amina feel less alone. They spent hours together, playing, studying, and sharing stories about their lives. Emily introduced Amina to her friends, and slowly the young refugee began to feel part of the community. This friendship became a symbol of unity and hope amid the chaos that had settled in Greenfield. However, the refugees' presence was not well received by everyone. Some residents, fearing for the town's safety and economy, demanded their immediate deportation. Among these residents was Henry, an old farmer who had always been reserved and distrustful of changes. "These foreigners will bring problems to our town. We already have our own issues to solve," Henry vociferated in one of the community meetings. But Emily and Amina, determined to change this perception, decided to act. They started organizing cultural events at St. Peter's Church, where the refugees could share their stories, music, and dances with the locals. The idea was to show that despite differences, they had more in common than they realized. On one of these nights, Amina took the improvised stage and began to sing a song from her homeland. Her sweet and melancholic voice filled the church with palpable emotion. Many eyes filled with tears, and even Henry, who was reluctant to participate, was moved by the performance. After the song, Emily took the microphone and said, "Amina lost her parents, her home, and everything she knew, but she didn't lose hope. And it is this hope that we want to share with all of you. Let's show that Greenfield can be a place of welcome and solidarity." The reaction was mixed. Some applauded, moved, while others remained skeptical, but the seed of change had been planted. The friendship between Amina and Emily began to inspire other young people in the town to get involved and help the refugees integrate. They organized English classes, provided emotional support, and even helped with job searches. However, the tension was still palpable. Groups opposed to the refugees' presence continued to protest, and the town seemed on the brink of a larger conflict. But slowly, the refugees' stories of courage and resilience began to change hearts and minds. St. Peter's Church, once a field of verbal battles, was now becoming a place of dialogue and understanding. The refugees' journey in Greenfield was not easy, and many challenges were still to come. However, the friendship between Amina and Emily and the determination of many others showed that it was possible to build bridges instead of walls. The town was changing, and with it, the hope for a better future began to emerge on the horizon. Following the video's release, local authorities launched a formal investigation into Father Daniel's actions. The tension in Greenfield intensified when Robert Brooks, the city's lawyer and a respected member of St. Peter's Church, found himself at the center of an ethical dilemma. Robert, a man of rigid principles and great respect for the law, now faced the need to choose between following the existing legislation or defending the priest, whom he had known and admired for years. "Robert, you need to understand that what Father Daniel did was illegal," argued the local prosecutor Mark Thompson during a meeting in the prosecutor's office. "He harbored refugees without any authorization. This cannot go unpunished." "I understand your position, Mark," Robert responded, looking directly at the prosecutor. "But there is a larger humanitarian issue at play here. Father Daniel acted out of compassion, helping people who were in desperate situations." Meanwhile, at St. Peter's Church, Father Daniel continued his religious activities, trying to maintain calm amidst the turmoil. The community was divided, but many church members approached him with words of support. "Father, we stand with you," said Margaret, an elderly parishioner who had attended the church for decades. "You did what was right. Those refugees needed help." "Thank you, Margaret," replied Father Daniel, holding her hands firmly. "Your faith and support mean a lot to me." Amidst this troubled scene, Robert Brooks decided he couldn't simply ignore what he believed was the right thing to do. He contacted a group of human rights lawyers, known for their work defending the vulnerable, and asked for help to build a strong defense for Father Daniel. Among these lawyers was Clara Mendez, a passionate advocate who quickly became involved in the case. "Robert, I read the case and I'm impressed with Father Daniel's courage," said Clara during a meeting at the law firm. "We will do everything to ensure he gets a fair trial." The legal battle began to take shape, with public hearings attracting significant media and community attention. The court sessions became emotional, with touching testimonies from both the refugees and congregation members. "I was just a scared girl with nowhere to go," said Amina, one of the refugees welcomed by the priest, in her emotional testimony. "Father Daniel gave me a home and hope. He saved my life." Robert and Clara worked tirelessly, preparing arguments that emphasized the humanitarian nature of the priest's actions. They highlighted the moral obligation to help those in need, even when the law seemed rigid and insensitive. "Your Honor, we are not here to discuss the cold, hard legality of the situation," argued Robert during one of the hearings. "We are here to question what is right and humane. Father Daniel followed the most fundamental principles of our humanity by helping these people." On the other side, the prosecution spared no effort to portray the priest as a lawbreaker. Mark Thompson presented strong arguments, using the letter of the law to show that, regardless of intentions, Father Daniel violated the immigration rules. "We cannot allow our laws to be disrespected in this manner, Your Honor," said Mark in his closing argument. "If we do, we will be setting dangerous precedents." The Greenfield community watched every development of the case with attention and apprehension. The trial was not just about Father Daniel, but also about the town's values and identity. The legal battle was an emotional roller coaster, with each testimony and legal argument adding new layers of complexity to the situation. Throughout the process, Robert Brooks became a symbol of integrity and courage, fighting not just for Father Daniel, but also for the essence of justice and compassion. He and Clara Mendez formed an unbeatable team, joining forces to confront a system that often seemed more interested in punishment than understanding. "It's not just a legal issue," said Clara in an interview with the local press. "It's about recognizing the humanity and dignity of every person, regardless of their origin or status." With the investigation and legal battle in full swing, the small town of Greenfield found itself at a crossroads, where every decision made would have profound repercussions for the future of everyone involved. Tom, a former member of St. Peter's Church, had distanced himself from the community due to a deep disagreement with Father Daniel. The reason for Tom's estrangement was a theological dispute that had become too personal for him. For years, he carried a grudge that kept him away from the church and the community he once loved. With the video's revelation, Tom, like many other Greenfield residents, was in shock. He couldn't believe that the same priest he had disagreed with was now at the center of such a major controversy. However, upon watching the footage of the priest welcoming the refugees with such compassion, something inside Tom began to change. On a rainy Sunday, Tom decided it was time to return to the church. He entered the temple during Mass, sitting discreetly at the back, observing Father Daniel preach. The tension in the congregation was palpable, but Tom felt there was something stronger in the air. After Mass, Tom waited until the church was almost empty. He approached Father Daniel, who was talking with some parishioners. When the priest saw him, his eyes widened in surprise. "Tom, is it really you?" asked Father Daniel, with a mix of surprise and joy in his voice. "Yes, Father, it's me. We need to talk," replied Tom, with a serious but not hostile tone. The two went to the sacristy, where they could talk in private. Tom began to speak, his voice filled with emotion. "Father, we had a disagreement years ago and I could never get over it. But seeing what you did, welcoming those refugees, I realized I was wrong about many things. I distanced myself from the church and everyone because I was hurt, but now I see you were just trying to do good." Father Daniel looked at Tom with compassionate eyes. "Tom, I know we had our differences, but I always cared about you. I never wanted you to leave. I'm glad you came back." Tom took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to ask for forgiveness for everything, and I also want to help. I want to be part of the solution, not the problem." Father Daniel smiled. "Forgiveness is a two-way street, Tom. I also ask for forgiveness if I somehow contributed to your departure. And of course, you are welcome to help. We need all the hands we can get to unite our community." From that moment, Tom became an unexpected ally of Father Daniel. He began attending church meetings, actively participating in discussions and promoting dialogue between the opposing factions. His story of redemption spread through the community, inspiring others to reconsider their own positions and grudges. At one of the community meetings, Tom gave an emotional speech. "If I, who have been away for so long, can find a way back and work for unity, we all can. We need to remember the values we were taught: compassion, forgiveness, and love for others." Tom's presence and willingness to reconcile helped change the town's atmosphere. Heated discussions began to give way to more constructive dialogues. People who had been on opposite sides started listening to each other, seeking solutions together. The friendship between Amina and Emily, already a symbol of hope, gained even more strength with Tom's active participation in the community. He became a mentor to many young people, including Amina, helping her integrate and overcome past traumas. Tom also found a new mission, working for the refugees' integration into the town. Along with other church members, he started organizing cultural events, language classes, and support programs, showing that the Greenfield community could be an example of welcome and solidarity. In the end, Tom's story wasn't just about his own redemption, but about the entire community's ability to come together and rebuild. His journey of forgiveness and reconciliation became a beacon of hope for everyone, demonstrating that even in times of deep division, love and compassion can prevail. The courtroom was packed. The air was filled with expectation and tension as everyone awaited the start of the trial. The case of Father Daniel Harris divided the small town of Greenfield, and the legal battle promised to be one of the most emotional events in the community's recent history. Father Daniel, sitting next to his lawyers, maintained a serene expression, but his eyes betrayed his concern. Robert Brooks, the town's lawyer who had decided to defend the priest, was by his side, reviewing his notes one last time. He knew the defense would be difficult, but he was determined to fight with all his might. "Are we ready, Father?" Robert asked, trying to convey confidence. "Yes, Robert. May God guide us," Father Daniel replied with a slight nod. The judge entered the room and everyone stood. After the initial procedures, the prosecution began its opening statements. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, began to describe Father Daniel's actions as a clear violation of immigration law. Father Daniel Harris violated this country's laws by welcoming illegal refugees into his church. "He disrespected the community's trust and put us all at risk," declared the prosecutor with a firm and compelling voice. The defense, in turn, emphasized the compassion and humanity of the priest's actions. Robert Brooks stood up and began his defense with an emotional narrative. "Ladies and gentlemen, Father Daniel Harris acted according to the noblest principles of our faith. He saw people in need, desperate human beings, and couldn't turn his back. He did what any good-hearted person would do," Robert argued, looking directly at the jury. The first day of testimonies was intense. Amina, one of the refugees welcomed by Father Daniel, was called to the witness stand. With the help of an interpreter, she told her story of escape and suffering and how she found hope at St. Peter's Church. Father Daniel gave us shelter when we had nowhere to go. He saved our lives, Amina said, with tears streaming down her face. The prosecution, however, was not swayed. They called John Smith, the immigration officer, to testify. John was visibly nervous, torn between his professional duty and his personal feelings. "Mr. Smith, do you believe that Father Daniel broke the law?" the prosecutor asked. John hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes, he broke the law, but he also saved lives." John's response caused murmurs in the room. The tension was palpable. Each new testimony seemed to divide the courtroom even more. Father Daniel listened attentively, maintaining his composure despite the storm around him. Over the following days, the defense brought more witnesses, including community members who supported the priest. Emily, the teenager who befriended Amina, was one of those witnesses. "Father Daniel taught me the true meaning of compassion and love for others. He is a hero to me," Emily declared, with surprising firmness for her age. But the prosecution did not relent. They argued that the priest's actions could have dangerous consequences, encouraging others to break the law. "What prevents others from doing the same and putting our safety at risk?" the prosecutor questioned. When it was Father Daniel's turn to testify, the room fell silent. He stood up, adjusted his clerical collar, and walked to the witness stand. His voice was calm and firm. "I did what my faith taught me to do. I couldn't turn my back on those people. I know I broke the law, but I believe I did what was right. I ask for forgiveness from those who felt betrayed, but I do not regret helping those in need." The priest's statement brought tears to many eyes in the room. The trial was more than a simple legal matter. It was a debate about morality, compassion, and humanity. After days of testimonies and arguments, the judge announced that the verdict would be given the following day. The town of Greenfield waited anxiously, knowing the decision could change the community's dynamics forever. That night, Father Daniel and Robert Brooks met at St. Peter's Church. They sat on the benches, silent for a few moments before Robert spoke. "Father, whatever the verdict, know that we are with you. Your courage and compassion have inspired many of us." "Thank you, Robert. All I did was follow my heart. I hope justice prevails, whatever the outcome," Father Daniel replied with a serene smile. The courtroom's tension was just a reflection of the community's tension. Greenfield was at a turning point, and the trial's verdict would be a decisive moment for everyone. During the trial, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The charges against Father Daniel Harris had divided the Greenfield community, but as the process advanced, secrets from the past began to emerge, drastically altering the case's dynamics. John Smith, the immigration officer under intense pressure to take action against the priest, was a man of principles. However, he had a secret he kept under lock and key. During one of the sessions, while the lawyers debated fervently, the defense attorney Robert Brooks brought to light a shocking revelation. "Mr. Smith, is it true that your family also has a history of immigration?" asked Brooks, with a piercing look. John hesitated, looked at his wife Mary, who was sitting at the back of the room with tears in her eyes, and finally answered, "Yes, it's true. My grandfather came to this country as a refugee during World War II." The courtroom fell silent, and all eyes turned to John. He continued, "My grandfather fled the war and found safety here. He always taught us about the importance of helping those in need because he knew what it was like to suffer." This confession changed the trial's course. People began to see John not just as an immigration officer, but as someone with a personal connection to the refugee issue. The tension between him and his family eased, and Mary looked at her husband with pride, knowing how difficult it had been for him to reveal this secret. Meanwhile, another even deeper secret was about to be revealed. During a break in the trial, Emily, the teenager who had befriended Amina, was exploring the old St. Peter's Church when she found a dusty diary hidden on a shelf. She ran to Father Daniel, who was in a small restroom, and handed him the diary. "Father Daniel, I found this in the church. I think you should take a look." Father Daniel opened the diary with trembling hands. It was his own diary, which he had lost years ago. The pages were filled with personal reflections, prayers, and confessions about his internal struggles. He began to read aloud to Emily, Mary, and others present in the room. "Today I welcomed a group of refugees. I know I am going against the laws, but my heart couldn't leave them helpless. Each of them has a story of pain and hope. I see in Amina's eyes the same pain I saw in my brother's eyes, who died trying to escape from conflict." The diary's words revealed the true motivation behind Father Daniel's actions. He was not acting just out of compassion, but also out of personal pain he had carried since losing his brother. This revelation touched everyone present deeply. John, who was listening, approached Father Daniel and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Father, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." Father Daniel, with tears in his eyes, replied, "We all have our struggles, John. The important thing is to find the courage to do what is right, even when it is hard." With these revelations, the trial's dynamics changed completely. The Greenfield community began to see Father Daniel not just as a spiritual leader, but as a human being facing his own internal battles. The secrets revealed brought new understanding and empathy among the residents. As the trial continued, it became clear that the town needed more than just a legal verdict. It needed healing, unity, and a new beginning. These secrets, once hidden, became the key to this transformation. After weeks of intense debates and emotional testimonies, the Greenfield community gathered in the courtroom to hear the verdict in Father Daniel Harris's case. The courtroom was packed with anxious faces and tight hearts. The tension was palpable, reflecting the deep division the video's revelation had caused in the town. Judge Thompson, an austere-looking man, entered the room and everyone stood in respect. He sat down and began flipping through his papers before looking directly at Father Daniel, who was sitting next to his lawyer, Robert Brooks. The murmurs in the room ceased as the judge began to speak. "After carefully listening to the arguments presented by both sides, this court has reached a decision," announced Judge Thompson in a firm voice. "It has not been easy, considering the moral and legal complexities of this case." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the audience. "It is undeniable that Father Daniel acted against the immigration laws in place by welcoming the refugees. However, it is also evident that his actions were motivated by a profound sense of compassion and humanity." The judge continued, "Recognizing the illegality of his actions, but also considering the exceptional circumstances and humanitarian intent, the court sentences Father Daniel to a light sentence of community service." A murmur of surprise and relief spread through the room. Some timid applause began to echo but were quickly contained. The judge had not finished. Furthermore, this court strongly recommends that the Greenfield community work together to find solutions to the challenges faced by the refugees. It is imperative that, as a society, we promote compassion and mutual understanding. After the judge's announcement, a heavy silence filled the room. Father Daniel, with teary eyes, stood up and addressed the audience. "I accept the court's decision with humility and gratitude. My actions were guided by love for my neighbor, and I hope we can use this moment to grow as a community." John Smith, who was present with his wife Mary and their children, felt a lump in his throat. He knew the court's decision did not end the moral dilemmas he faced, but took an important step toward understanding. "John," Mary whispered, holding her husband's hand, "maybe it's time to reconsider our positions." John silently nodded, feeling the weight of his wife's words. The room began to empty. But the conversations continued outside. The court's decision had left the community in a state of reflection and uncertainty. Emily and Amina, who watched the trial together, hugged emotionally. "Let's keep helping," Emily said with determination. "This is just the beginning." Amina smiled, feeling a mix of relief and hope. "Yes, Emily. Together, we can make a difference." As the crowd dispersed, Robert Brooks approached Father Daniel. "We did our best, Father. The sentence was fair, given the circumstances." "Thank you, Robert," replied Daniel, shaking the lawyer's hand. "Your help was invaluable. Now we need to focus on uniting this community." The court's decision marked a turning point in Greenfield. Although Father Daniel's sentence was light, the message of compassion and humanity resonated deeply in the town. The community was being called to reflect on its values and work together to face the challenges ahead. The journey was not over, but a new chapter was beginning, full of uncertainties but also possibilities. The shocking twist that unfolded in Greenfield was a true shock to everyone. After weeks of tension, heated debates, and deep divisions, the truth behind the hidden camera began to emerge, completely changing everyone's perception. Initially, it was believed that the camera had been installed by someone with the intent to incriminate Father Daniel and expose his actions as a violation of immigration laws. However, the reality was much more complex and unexpected. During a community meeting organized to discuss the refugees' future and Father Daniel's sentence, one of the human rights activists, Clara Mendez, took the floor. With a serious and determined tone, she revealed a fact that no one expected. "Good evening, everyone," Clara began, looking directly at the crowd. "I know you all have strong opinions about what happened, but there is something you need to know. The hidden camera that filmed Father Daniel helping the refugees was not placed by someone who wanted to harm him. In fact, it was installed by a group of human rights activists, including myself." The room fell silent, with looks of surprise and disbelief exchanged among the attendees. Clara continued, "Our goal was to expose the injustices of rigid immigration laws. We wanted to show the world that despite these laws, there are people who still have compassion and are willing to do what is right, even if it means breaking the law. Father Daniel is one of those people. He is a hero, not a criminal." The impact of these words was immediate and profound. The revelation generated a wave of emotion in the community, which began to realize the importance of fighting for systemic changes. John Smith, the immigration officer facing a moral dilemma on how to proceed with Father Daniel's case, was one of the first to speak. "Clara, are you saying that all this was a setup to expose immigration laws?" asked John, visibly shaken. "Yes, John," Clara replied firmly, "but not a setup to harm anyone. We wanted to show the true face of compassion and humanity, and Father Daniel is the personification of that." John reflected for a moment before making a decision that would change his life forever. "In that case, I can no longer continue in my position. I resign as an immigration officer and join the movement. We need changes, and we need them now." The community was stunned by John's decision, but quickly applauded his courage. This was the turning point Greenfield needed. Inspired by the revelation and John's example, Tom, who had reconciled with Father Daniel, Amina, Emily, and other community members, began working together to create an integration program for the refugees. "Let's make Greenfield an example of welcome and humanity," declared Tom during a community council meeting. "We need to show the world that we can be better, that we can welcome and integrate those who need it most." Father Daniel, initially seen as a traitor by some, was now widely recognized as a true hero. His courage and compassion inspired the entire town to come together and fight for a better future for everyone. Father Daniel, "You showed us the true meaning of love for others," said Mary Smith, John's wife, during a mass. "Thank you for your courage and for reminding us what really matters." The town of Greenfield, once divided, was now reconciling and emerging stronger and united. The shocking twist not only redeemed Father Daniel, but also brought new hope and purpose to the community. Together, they were ready to face the challenges and build a future where compassion and humanity prevailed.